SexyHackers.com.
Once upon a time, there were a few young girls with a passion for literature, a love of the written word, an inspired infatuation of... Okay, fine. We were a bunch of super dorks with no friends. We spent all day hiding out in our rooms, reading books that were maybe a little inappropriate.
Welcome back to Who Let Me Read This, the podcast where a panel of funny folks read books that we read when we were too young for the content, books that were a little inappropriate for the age at which we read them, and talk about how that colored our perception of things, how that directed our lives, and cost us a whole lot of money in therapy bills.
That these characters should have gotten instead.
The book that we read for this month, well, this series, is Johnny the Homicidal Maniac by Jhonen Vasquez. It is a late 90s, early 2000s comic book series, 7-issue series that was written for adults but sold at Hot Topic.
Yeah. So adults did not buy it. I bought it while wearing trip pants with straps.
Oh, tiny Andrea in trip pants and straps.
Do you still have those pants?
Oh, no.
Oh,
This is Andrea Roedel-Schroeder right here in the middle.
I've done this to you.
Trap pant expert. Performer. Do you have anything coming up?
Shortly
In
after
the
this
near future?
airs, we will be starting, several of us will be starting our new season of Shakespeare Raw from Boozy
I'm
Bard
thinking
Productions.
about our release dates, and we probably should have asked this question earlier because I think that Boozy Bard was last week.
Well,
But
next
it
one.
runs.
Yes.
It runs through until October.
Yes,
so.
if you are in the Milwaukee area or southerly Wisconsin area in general, we are a group of Shakespeare performers who do essentially improvisational Shakespeare, more or less. We show up, we pick character names from a hat for one show each month. We do 4 shows of that play. So our first show is Julius Caesar. Our second show is maybe Troilus and Cressida, but TBD. And basically it's performed on the spot. We get into character, we throw on some costumes, we have a drinking game. It's very fun. If you like Shakespeare or you know nothing about Shakespeare, we have a really great time and you should come and see it. It's at Best Place at the Pabst Brewery, and it is 1 week a month. There is a Facebook page, Boozy Bard Productions, that you can follow and come see us because it's very fun.
All right. All the way down on the end, we have Liza Fields. Hi. Liza Fields, who says she does nothing. Do you want to plug anything, though?
No,
Anything you're excited about?
No.
Nothing. How's married life?
Married life is great. It's the same as when we weren't married.
Right.
Go figure.
Just different way to file your taxes.
Exactly.
Depending on your last name, and changing your name could be a nice change.
Yeah.
And
I
it
stepped
is.
up.
It is.
It was kind of a lateral move, but
My initials are still the same,
oh, nice.
which
that's
is
nice.
baller. But yes, it's a much easier, less complicated last name.
And see, I just went full German.
Yeah.
Just hyphenate all the German words.
Yep, Roedel-Schroeder.
All right. Well, that's Irish. I keep mixing up my accents this week. Yeah.
And we also have funny lady and all-around good guy, Liv Shircel,
That's me.
who also traded up on her married name.
I did, just barely. Just barely.
One step up.
But when is this airing? April?
Oh, I don't know. Sometime in March.
late March.
It's March right now.
Yeah.
Okay, it's March
I
right
know
now.
exactly what day this is airing, and it's today. The day you're watching it.
Yes.
Maybe.
If you want to see more of me, the first week in May, I'll be doing a series of short plays directed by Matt Conkle, name TBD. Hey, we'll do it together.
Okay.
And I'll be there too. The next weekend, I'll be doing the comedy of Hamlet, kind of, sorta, by Patrick Schmitz. I'll be
excited about that.
Guildenstern.
Yes.
So 2 chances to see me live and in person. Otherwise, over at Comedy Sports or probably Ampersand. Yeah.
And I'm Sarah Wallisch. I'm here every Wednesday. I'm here every Wednesday talking about how people should think about having some therapy.
Yes.
I also will be doing some Shakespeare and listening, and I'm still trying to get on Turn to Page Fun.
Someday.
I'm gonna wear Nick down enough to let me be on Turn to Page Fun, and then he'll have to write a new intro because he'll have let me be on the show.
Yeah, been in the production process at some point.
Yes.
Awesome.
Sexy Hackers podcast Turn to Page Fun was my idea, and it was stolen from me.
So,
But totally, like, it's fine.
What a great plug for Turn to Page Fun.
Turn to Page Fun. It's a great show.
Airing
it's
every
an
Monday.
Awesome show. It's actually probably better without me, let's be honest.
So you can watch Turn to Page Fun every Monday. You can watch this group of ladies every Wednesday. Who let me read this. Monday night, if you're just like cool and you're on Twitch, you can watch No Dice at 7:30.
so fun.
Or
And
if you're less cool, you can watch it on YouTube.
Oh, yeah.
yes.
And then also,
I believe it's the 15th and the 30th.
Yes,
of each
twice a month.
Twice a month. All Arcadians here on the Sexy Hackers Network. It's a scripted D&D series. Very funny. They use the whole table. We only use half of the table. They use the whole table.
Maximum table.
Yes, if you didn't feel like you got enough table on our podcast, definitely tune into that one because there's twice as much table.
to be fair, it is a tabletop role-playing game. So
Yeah, table is important.
Oh man, please let that be their tagline. Twice the table.
twice the table. The table is important.
All right.
Speaking of important, not this section of the plot.
No.
This is the last section
There
of
is no
Johnny the
plot
Homicidal
anymore.
Maniac. As its title suggests, Homicidal Maniac is a major plot point, which means that this is a very violent series. Just baby content warning here. There's a little bit of everything.
It is a smorgasbord.
A lot of violence.
Yeah.
Smorgasbord of violence. Rudy Rooshki. Smorgasbord of violence. I can't say the word smorgasbord, apparently. But we also, throughout the series, have dealt with some heavy themes of suicide, mental health, child abuse and neglect, allusions to
That get more explicit in this section.
sexual assault,
Delightful.
and just kind of a lot of general misanthropy,
Yeah, it's dark. It's a lot.
edgy, early-aughts edginess.
Yes, to the max.
The max.
So what's happened so far, Andrea?
Well, boy, oh boy. Johnny is a homicidal maniac. He kills a ton of people. He soliloquizes a lot about like nihilism and how everybody's terrible and existence is suffering, and it's all just a lot. He has a neighbor boy, Squee, who he traumatizes. He lives next door, and his parents don't care about him, so Johnny is somehow the only person who cares about him, but he also murders people in front of him a lot, so... He goes on a date with Devi, who's awesome, and he tries to kill her to prevent any sort of negativity from tainting the memory of their delightful date, and she just wrecks him and leaves. Yeah, because she's the best. And then he talks more about killing people and how he maybe is immortal and maybe can't die and maybe can't be caught, and there's just a lot, you guys.
And then he dies.
And then he does die because he's wrong. He gets shot in the face and he dies, and he goes to heaven, and then he goes to hell, and tentacle monster destroys the world, but then it doesn't. And then we're back.
The world gets rebooted after
Yeah.
the tentacle monster.
I'm going to be real with you
destroys it. I
guys.
don't
My
know.
synopsis for this just has a lot of question marks.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Because it's a lot of just, he kills a lot of people and he talks a lot.
And he's unreliable.
And he's unreliable.
It's
so
a
maybe some other
really-
stuff happens.
I mean, if I was teaching a unit in a college course about unreliable narrators, I wouldn't make my class read this, but I would mention it.
It would be in like the notes in the syllabus.
For sure.
And then Girl on the Train, I believe, would be a good one to
Yeah.
read.
That would be good.
Like,
That would be an actual good one. Listen, I do like this, but it's a lot, you guys.
Yeah. There are things about it that are very enjoyable, and there are things that make me really glad I did not read it when I was young.
And so for this section now, we're in the very last leg of the whole series, which is the 7th installment of it if you are reading the single issues, or it is just part 7 in the director's cut. And we take all of the plot about heaven and hell and tentacle monsters and flushers and don't ask, and just all of the things that we talked about, and then we throw them right in the trash.
Yep.
Yeah.
And we move on. And Johnny meets a fan of his.
Sure.
Which
I
is,
wonder if this is semi-autobiography.
Yeah, I can imagine. I can only imagine that Jhonen Vasquez has had
He's
some
got some
weird
interesting
dudes. Yeah.
fans for sure.
So we meet Jimmy, and Johnny's nickname through this is Knee, because Johnny Knee. We get Jimmy, who's me.
Ugh.
Yeah,
It's very. It reminds me of Buffy and Xander, names like that. Except that I really like Buffy.
We don't talk about Xander here.
Sorry. Yeah, we're definitly not Team Xander.
Sorry,
we're
I'm not meaning-
anti-Xander.
I'm not talking about him being good. I'm just saying that his name
the
is
name.
Alexander.
Yes.
And I mean Joss Whedon himself is Joseph, but goes by Joss instead of Joe.
Yes.
My Joss Whedon name would be V for Olivia.
Oh, yeah.
So think of your Joss Whedon name, everybody.
We'll come up with a generator.
But just that idea, which was coming out around the
It
same
is
time.
very
and-
early aughts. Yes.
Yes.
Everybody's got to have a cool nickname.
Yep.
I never had a cool nickname.
No, I did not
Me
either.
neither.
No, you know what? Our I don't remember what the title is, but at least in the early 2000s at school, you had people that were just like assigned to hang out that weren't like SROs or anything like that, but they were essentially like auditors to make sure nothing buck wild happened, and they would just kind of hang around the school. And ours called me Red.
Oh, that is a cool name.
That was my early 2000s edgy nickname.
I'll be
was
honest,
Red.
my cool name is Liv.
Yeah,
and I
Liv
just
is a
took it
very
and ran
That
with
is a
it.
great name.
Nobody called me Liv until I was in high school, and I was like, took.
Yeah.
This is mine.
Yeah.
There's no cool names for Sarah.
No.
Rah rah.
Ugh, gross.
That sounds like a baby can't say your name.
Yeah, it's a lot. But we get me, who sucks. And he shows up and is a big fan of Johnny, and he admires him greatly and has tried to take after him. But then he makes the fatal mistake, quite literally, of telling Johnny about a rape that he has committed. And that, my friends, is a bridge too far for this mass murderer
Yeah.
who
tortures
staples bunnies to walls.
Yes.
And rape is past the line.
Yep.
Which, to be honest, rape is past the line.
It is. So is
I was,
murder.
I was very conflicted about that because I'm like,
Well, yes, rape is past the line, but also torture and murder past the line.
It's all.
But torturing and murdering a rapist?
but he doesn't torture him. He just murders him.
Oh,
past
he just
the
straight
And to be
up.
fair, he was
Yeah.
close to murdering him just because he was annoying him.
yeah. It's all. There's a lot of you tried to say something. It wasn't super successful, perhaps.
But also Johnny is very he's against. We said this in a previous episode. He's against bodily pleasure. So he's like, the idea
Yeah.
of touching someone to me is disgusting.
Yes.
But also he likes children and he hates rape. Those are supposed to be the two redeeming factors
And listen,
of him.
I do feel like that's a trope for
Yes.
the charismatic killer of just they're good with kids. They would never hurt they would never sexually hurt a woman. It's fine to murder a woman.
Oh,
but-
yeah. Depending on which killer
Yeah.
you're talking about. Yeah.
I think that is
for
a
sure.
trope, especially in horror fiction, of that kind of archetype. Sorry, that's my response. No, I mean, you ain't wrong. So he kills that guy, and we just keep on trucking. The most plot that we get in this section is interactions with both Devi and Squee. He tries to talk to Devi and apologize for trying to kill her and traumatizing her, and we get the best part of this series, which
Yeah.
is just Devi not being here for it, which we'll get more into depth in shortly. And then we get him showing up to Squee and having sort of again, this is a lot of self-awareness in this installment. I feel like there's not a lot of plot. It's a lot of
Goodbye.
wrapping things up. And we get him.
It feels a lot like an epilogue.
Yeah. We get him talking to Squee. He comes to Squee in the night again, because that's a thing.
Oh, right after Squee's dad was like, I never wanted you.
Yes. And he talks about how he's worried that like he has helped send Squee on a bad path and that like he wants him to like he wants good things for Squee. And I'm like, well, maybe stop killing people in front of him. Yeah. But like it's a lot of like closure. Which was interesting because like it felt like that should have happened in this past
Yes.
Yeah. I'm sorry, I just got a theory and maybe someone else has got this before.
Oh dang.
What if Johnny's not a homicidal maniac? He's Squee's weird neighbor. And this entire book is from Squee's point of view and what he thinks his weird neighbor does.
They Patrick Bateman'd us.
Yeah.
It just happened in my brain. And I was like, oh, and that's why he like, so it starts, he sees his weird neighbor and then he has this imaginary friend who gets him through things.
And he's got a very dark internal narrative because he's abused and neglected.
Right. So when he's rescued, I'm not saying he murders that guy, but he gets away or he's being assaulted and he goes with his imaginary friend to get out of this place. And then goes back home. His dad has this terrible confession.
I think we've
and
just
right after his imaginary friend.
series,
for real.
And like,
Jhonen, call us.
Does someone write this down?
He's like, no, I meant it.
TM.
Right. No one steal this idea. We are going to go to a quick word from our sponsors.
So we can write this.
So so our brains can explode and we can quick write this series. And we will be back because there are for sure some WTFs for this particular piece and also just for the series as a whole. So we'll be back right after a word from our sponsors, sexyhackers.com. Bye.
Sexyhackers.com.
Welcome back. I hope you enjoyed that word from our sponsor, Sexy Hackers. We wrote an entire comic book series while you were listening to that.
If you're interested in being our distributor.
Yeah.
It's called You Need Therapy.
Therapy. It's for everyone.
Yeah.
Subtitle, don't do this thing.
All right. So we have come to the end of the plot, really, for Jhonen the Homicidal Maniac.
What little there was.
Yeah. Right. And so let's jump into some WTFs from this kind of end section, the epilogue, if you will.
I think I kind of already covered mine personally, which is just like revisiting this weird archetype of like rape being over the line for people who are very, very violent and terrible. Because like, yeah, it is, but so is all the other stuff. Listen, I was in a simple mindset by the end of this because there was already just so much.
Yeah.
There was already so much.
The idea of like we need to give him some sort of moral compass.
Yeah.
Is it's just a little. Don't get me wrong. I'm really glad he doesn't. I think I wouldn't have read the book if that was involved too. I would have been like, no.
There is
like
and
I can't.
Yeah, that's a trigger for me. I probably would have put it down.
And that's the thing is I think that's almost universal is and it's a whole other podcast of the difference in our society between how we can compartmentalize violence versus how we can compartmentalize sex and the intersection of those two things. It sucks.
Well, I made a note too when we were like messaging with each other about it. I was like, I've read this so many times in the past and I haven't read it in a really long time, but I feel like I'm super desensitized to it. Yeah. So I don't know what that says about me as a person.
And I think it is so over the top.
It is.
That it becomes easier to be desensitized to it because it's so unrealistically bonkers.
Well, and it's illustrated.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. It does help.
Like obviously we can separate it, but like it's way easier to see something that's illustrated and be like, oh wow. As opposed to like if you saw actual graphic pictures, it'd be like a whole different thing.
Right.
Yes. Which this also, oh boy, sidebar. Hey, everybody who was on the internet in the early 2000s. Remember Rotten.com?
Oh my God.
I wasn't on the internet at that time.
Wow.
Yeah. And this is all sort of that same culture of like ultra shocking, ultra edgy. And I think that is part of why those of us who were exposed to this at a young age is there was a weird period in our history where
Andrea, Liv never went to Rotten.com.
Should we describe?
Do you want to get
Rotten
just a quick,
Oh my God.
quick description of just what Rotten.com was?
So for those of you who weren't on the internet in 2001,
You had a bad computer.
Yes.
Your computer was in the family room, so your parents could see everywhere you went,
Yes.
which was me.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. So
computer in the
everybody,
family room.
take a moment to envision the sounds of your modem screaming, and then take 5 minutes to load a page wherein it was essentially. So have you ever heard of Faces of Death?
Yes.
Oh, you sweet baby
Oh,
angel.
she's so
I'm about to ruin your life.
Do you want to know what grade I was in the year 2000?
2000.
No? Okay. I'm just saying, like,
I was a sophomore in high school.
you don't want to know the grade I was in the year 2000.
Oh, okay.
I was in second grade.
Whoa.
So,
I was in a little above that, but not much.
I just mean, like,
Yes.
our computer, we didn't have internet.
Yeah.
I was too impatient to do that, and I didn't know how to do it, and I was afraid I would break it. Like, that is the context of the year 2000 in computers.
So this was probably a little after that, because this was like circa when I was in like middle school, early high school. But both Rotten.com and Faces of Death were a big thing in that era, and they're both essentially snuff. So Rotten.com was a page where
Snuff
they
is
would,
people dying.
yes, they would, there would just be,
I wasn't sure if you were making that face because you were going to ask a question.
no, my
about what
question,
snuff
my
was.
face was like,
yeah,
like, why? Okay.
It was a why, not a what.
Yes.
it was basically Rotten.com was a collection of like very graphic images of dead.
Oh, and there were images.
Yes. Of like, it was like crime scene photos and like
Dead animals.
dead animals. And it was
That
all.
actually doesn't surprise me.
Yeah, no, that was the era. It was the like edgy,
It was like the game that
It
you could play
was-
on the computer where you put the cartoon hamster in the microwave and watch it explode.
Yes.
I had
Oh
forgotten
my
about that
God,
until
there
just
probably
now.
I was
a
too
video
young for
of
that.
it.
Yeah, because I watched that.
So it was very much that era, and this book was that era where we went through a weird, and there's probably a lot to unpack, like if we drill down on it, of like post 9/11 society and post Columbine society,
man,
and
yeah.
like we
And
all went through
Y2K society.
Yeah, we all went through a phase where like the world was fucking ending, and like
It's happening right now.
hey,
Yeah.
we're back.
Yeah.
Hey, we're back.
Yeah.
And I think that influenced a lot of this. Is
And I think for whatever reason at that point we turned hard towards like death and destruction and the grime of
Yeah.
it. And
Yeah.
now in a similar position, we've turned really hard toward like cat videos and baby animals and like possums are adorable.
It's the meme of the house on fire and the dog sitting there like, this is fine.
Fine.
Right.
Yep.
yeah, and I
Except he's on a laptop looking at pictures of people dying.
Exactly.
and listen, like I am envious of today's youth that we're in a garbage situation. Yes, but they get to look at cat videos, and we got to look at
Rotten.com, dude. I completely forgot about Rotten.com.
sorry,
What's the
everybody.
face thing?
Faces of Death was it's most of it was proven to be actually staged and false, but it was a video that was popular back in the day of it was supposedly of actual like deaths on film. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's my response.
Yeah, it was like
A compilation.
a compilation of
You know, like
people
skateboarding
dying.
compilations. It was like that, but with death.
But death.
Yeah.
Most of it was proven to be actually falsified.
Thank goodness.
Yes.
But like that, they made a horror movie about that for sure.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. But so
Anyway, this book.
anyways, this book is essentially that. It is very much, again, we've said it multiple times. I've said it many times. It's like, this is so much a time capsule for that early 2000s mindset of where we all were
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
that moment in time. And guys, it was rough.
And then like rereading it in the Me Too era, like
You're like,
you're just
oh,
like,
yeah.
oh my God.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was a lot. I think it was all one big WTF. To summarize this
Yeah.
book,
Yeah.
our WTF moment was
The
The book.
and the early 2000s as a whole.
Right.
Yeah.
One of my, I've got two big WTF moments. The first one is there's like a big boy cookie jar that's like, he's like, I don't want to be a slave to anything, and including taking care of my own body. Because he's talking about like eating food, and it's like, is it someone who's kind of gotten help and is like now adjusting, whether it's to like a medication that's making them gain weight because he obviously has a problem with gaining weight?
Yeah.
Is it someone who's just got an is it someone who's got an eating disorder, or is it someone who doesn't want to take care of them? There's just so much loaded into that, and then they're like, okay, that's done. Like,
Yeah.
And we just walk away from it and never think about it again.
right,
Never.
exactly.
There's a lot of blasé mentions of, and then just like internalizations of presumably what Jhonen Vasquez was coping with at the time, which like deals with eating and deals with probably some sort of obsessive compulsive situation in terms of like the obsession with filth and like disgustingness and
bodily fluids. That's a big part of it.
yeah, and like same in Invader Zim still, and the fear of there's a lot of fear of sleeping and dreaming and like not being in control, which is really interesting. Like again, as an adult rereading it and going like, oh, like this is a person who is like going through the tripwires of their brain and putting them onto the page.
Yeah,
Yes.
absolutely. It was definitely a moment in his life where he, decided, I need to get this out and burden everybody else with it.
Right.
Which probably was cathartic and healthy for him.
Oh, for sure. And I remember reading it and appreciating it in that way because, like, we've all gone to dark places. And, no judgment, Jhonen, but damn.
I hope that your brain is a safer place for you now.
For real.
Yeah.
Or at least that you have the tools to live in it.
Yeah. Exactly.
And then my other WTF moment is, so we've already discussed how like the book ended and now we have an epilogue, but the epilogue kind of doesn't need to be there, but it ties up some loose ends. But then there's in the director's cut, there's like descriptions of characters, there's some notes on each individual issue, but then the very last page, because it ends kind of like, is he gonna commit suicide by jumping off this cliff? Because he says goodbye to Squee. He's trying to like make amends with Devi to be like, okay, I want to leave.
And the very last line is, by the time I write in this book again, I hope to be as cold as the moon that lights this page.
But then you go to the very last page and it's a page of hope where he's getting like a brain freezy or whatever. And he's like, I hope to be in a better place.
Yes. So
But it doesn't feel like
that's
death.
not in mine.
It doesn't feel like death. It feels like, life is full of bad stuff. Hopefully I'm moving forward from that.
Which is, when was the compilation published?
see if I can read any of the fonts in it.
Well, Rob Schrab wrote his foreword in 97.
Yeah.
97?
Yeah.
That was before the first issue came out.
Yeah, it says June 97.
Maybe they knew each other?
Yeah, maybe
like,
he,
you
read
read it
them
before I do it?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it just says that this is the 26th printing, which was in August 2008.
Okay.
So
So the last
That wasn't too long ago.
issue came out in 2001.
Oh, shut up.
She said 2008 wasn't too long ago.
Oh, dear.
Because it's 2010, as everyone knows.
Right?
In the 80s were
That
only
was
20 years
a year
ago.
ago. Yeah.
The ending of the last issue, which
Yes.
was in 2001,
Yes.
just ends at the last page with him looking out over the cliff
And
and,
wanting to be as cold as the
soliloquizing,
moonlight.
wanting to be as cold as
Moonlight,
the moon. And so, like, I wonder, I hope that, whatever Jhonen Vasquez was doing between 2001 and 2008, he was like, hey, let me just add a little like glimmer of hope for my readers now.
Sure.
But it's really out of the genre.
Yeah,
like, it's just
it's
out
jarring.
of nowhere.
It's
And so then
jarring.
you're like, so what the fuck?
Yeah.
What's going on?
Yeah. It is a culmination of those little moments of self-awareness that we get where, like, for instance, to read a little excerpt of Devi shutting his shit down.
Shutting it down.
So he calls her and is like leaving a message on her voicemail apologizing and how he didn't mean to hurt her. He just wanted to kill her.
Oh, and saying it like he's super logical.
Yeah, it's all very like calm and just like, yeah, no hard feelings. And so she picks up the phone and goes, I want to tell you what I've been doing these last few months. Do you know what I've been up to? I've been staying in a lot. You know why? Because with each attempt to meet a nice person, things get increasingly bad. Last time I tried, you pulled knives on me. I didn't want to try again for fear of something even worse. Hell, I haven't even left this place. You know what's worse than hiding from what scares you? Do you? I'll tell you. It's having good things pass you by because you're too busy cringing in idiot terror, hiding someplace where all you can do is dwell on shit. And now, and now you think your little apology is going to make me happy as a drooly little baby. And then she swears a lot because it's the early 2000s. But like, there's these moments of self-awareness of just like, don't hide from things, confront things. Like, life is traumatic and we need to find a way to navigate the world. Which seems like this book was that for Jhonen Vasquez.
Yeah, that last line where he's like, there's nothing terribly wrong with feeling lost so long as that feeling precedes some plan on your part to actually do something about it.
Yeah. Call
so
to
you
action.
incel little bitches need to freaking do something about it.
And I wonder if when he wrote that to put in the director's cut, if, you know, like, was that a response to the way people responded to the comics, where he kind of felt like he had to clarify, like, okay, you guys are reading something into this that isn't what I intended.
And there are little brief moments of that too. And like, following that, there's literally a statement of, too often a person grows complacent with their disillusionment, perpetually wearing their discomfort like a favorite t-shirt. And I think that, like, I agree 100%. I think that is a statement to the readers of this book of like, this isn't what you should aim for. Like, this is an exorcism. This is the shit you should take and throw into the garbage or into a graphic novel. And then,
I want this to be called "This is an Exorcism." Yes. Johnny the Homicidal Maniac, director's cut.
Yeah,
this is an exorcism
for sure.
Because listen, there's negativity. There's always going to be negativity inside you and like outside of you, and all you can do is throw it in the trash and move on.
Right.
Make some art. Make some art that reaches middle schoolers.
Yes.
When it shouldn't, but like.
Or maybe put a little asterisk next to it that's like, hey,
this is my blue period.
Middle schoolers
blue period.
They're still little Satans running around.
No.
My 12-year-old stepdaughter tells me about the little Satans running around in her school, and I'm like, how do they know about these things? So yes.
And listen, don't empower the Satan.
Don't empower.
Put shit out there that shuts the Satan down.
So what is everyone's kind of big takeaway from this series?
I agree. I think we sort of stumbled upon it in this conversation, is that like, this is very much a capsule of a point in our lives where all of us were dealing with some really heavy shit as a society. Again, it was like right after Columbine and 9/11 and Y2K. And I think this is a very different cultural, generational reaction to that trauma as a society.
Yeah.
Where we dealt with it by going real dark.
Yeah.
And it is jarring now, and jarring in a very good way, to look at what our current youth is doing and what our current society is doing, and going to like a place of wholesomeness.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. Go that route, guys.
Yeah.
Go that route.
Coming into this, my takeaway was, fuck this book. But walking away from it, it's like, everyone needs therapy.
That's how we get to the end of most of our episodes.
Yeah,
is everybody just needs therapy.
Everyone needs therapy, and like, things are rough all over. For Johnny, he was just seeing other people living their lives as drones. And it's like, no, these other people have thoughts and they have feelings. Tess has her own like insecurities that she's trying to work through. And she was almost there right when she got abducted, and like have a little bit of what's the word I'm looking for? Perspective. Like, if I can look at myself and as your NPC in your game, like, they're dealing with their own fucking quest right now. Fuck off.
I think
Live summary. Fuck off.
for sure. I think my takeaway, and because I've read this and I thoroughly enjoyed it when I was younger, and you know, for me, it's just entertainment. You know, it's a comic book series that I went into and identified with a lot of it, and then laughed at a lot of it, and then was able to walk away without being like, well, time to go and kill some people, you know,
sure.
like, and
You didn't internalize it.
right. I feel like if this came out now, it would definitely be part of the cancel culture movement, which I don't necessarily agree with in terms of like, you know, stifling people's process. And when you delve into it, this was definitely a moment in his mental health journey, and I appreciated it. Yeah. So that's how I felt about it, and I still try not to take it too seriously.
I do like that.
yeah.
I'm going to take that one.
Yeah.
That's me fucking off. That's his part of his journey.
Right. Yeah. That I decided to read, you know. So.
Right, yeah, that I read, as Andrea says, with my own eyeballs.
Right, exactly.
So we are going to be back next week starting The Face on the Milk Carton by Caroline B. Cooney. If you haven't already picked up a copy of it and read it,
Sounds like a
I'm
trip.
sure, I'm 100% sure that it's at your local library.
Oh yeah, probably
Which
our
you
most
can-
accessible selection after New
Yeah.
Moon, where we can get it for $1.
And you can get like an audiobook from the comfort of your sexy hacker studio or your house. And you'll probably be able to get it without a wait by using the Libby app.
Right, yes. Libby app from your local library. So we will be back next week with our next book. Thank you so much for joining us for Johnny the Homicidal Maniac. Make sure if you are watching on YouTube, the YouTubes, go ahead, like, subscribe, comment. We want to know what you thought about Johnny the Homicidal Maniac. If you are listening on your podcast app of choice, make sure you give us a like, a review. All of that helps the algorithm? Question mark? We don't really know how the internet works.
And something happens.
Yes.
Nothing happens.
We are here every Wednesday at Who Let Me Read This, part of the Sexy Hackers Podcast Network. Check out sexyhackers.com. Yes. Get a t-shirt. Listen to some sweet podcasts. And we will see you next week. Big thanks to Liza, Andrea, Liv, and I'm Sarah. Bye.
SexyHackers.com! Stream Team!